Good afternoon, everyone. This is the Public Works Committee meeting for Tuesday, September 21st, 2021, 4:15. We have present Nash, Allen, Bradford, Gamble, O'Connell, and Young. And here comes Council Clerk. We have a quorum. Chair doesn't have a report, but only to say that I suspect next month we'll have a new chairman, and I appreciate everyone's cooperation and putting up with me for the past year, and not laughing at me too much when I run into walls and those kinds of things. It was really nice. Okay, I do have a consent agenda. Starting on page 2, bill number 2021-873, bill authorizing the acquisition of certain rights-of-way easements, drainage easements, temporary construction easements, and property rights by negotiation or condemnation for use in public projects of the Metro government, initially for purposes of the Department of Transportation and multimodal infrastructure project Lipton Pike Bridge replacement. Bill number 2021-874 of Hamilton's Murphy Nash authorizes the conditional abandonment of a portion of Alley 371, approving acquisition of an interest of certain property and improvements thereupon, comprising a new alley and the granting of an easement above the new alley in connection with the development of a project in Nashville. Going on, bill number 2021-875, Toombs, Murphy, Nash, and O'Connell abandons a portion of Lincoln Street right-of-way from McKinney Street to alley number 1024. Bill number 2021-876, Sledge, Murphy, Nash, and O'Connell abandons alley number 442 in an unnumbered alley right-of-way and easement between 17th Avenue South and 18th Avenue South. We do have a letter approved from Council Member Sledge. On page 4, bill number 2021-878, Toombs, Murphy, Nash, approves a participation agreement between the Metro Department of Water and Sewage Services and Region Homes LLC to provide public sewer service improvements for Region's proposed development, as well as other existing properties in the area. On page 5, bill number 2021-880, Van Rees, Murphy, and Nash accepts new sanitary sewer mains, sanitary sewer manholes, and easements for two properties located at 1101 Chadwick Drive and Chadwell Drive and Chadwell Drive unnumbered. Bill number 2021-881, Bradford, Murphy, and Nash abandons existing water main easements to locate existing fire hydrant assemblies and to accept new water main easements for property located at 1 Terminal Drive, also known as DNA Garage B Phase 1. Bill number 2021-882, Hancock, Murphy, and Nash accepts a new sanitary sewer mains, sanitary sewer manholes and easements for 7 properties located on Rio Vista Drive. We have a letter requesting approval by Council Member Hancock. Bill number 2021-883, Sledge, Murphy, and Nash accepts new sanitary main and sanitary sewer manhole for property located at 2176B Carson Street, and the letter approved also from Councilmember Sledge. And that's it on the consent agenda. Does anybody see anything that needs to come off?
Mr. Chair, 874, was that the one we deferred in traffic, parking, transportation?
874.
Yes.
It was?
Yes, I would pull that.
Thank you, yes. Anything else?
Move approval of consent agenda.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Any discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor, vote saying aye.
Aye.
And those opposed, like sign. That's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 0. 4, 0. Okay, back to item number 1 here on the agenda. Resolution RS 2021-1125, Nash and Bradford request the Nashville Department of Transportation multimodal infrastructure conduct a study to determine the feasibility and cost of the contracting of the state of Tennessee to allow NDOT to maintain state routes in Davidson County. And I would move approval.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. In way of discussion, I want to make sure that on the record that this is for right-of-way maintenance. with primary interest in making sure the grass gets mowed and trash gets picked up. You may remember this kind of arose out of a discussion we were having of how tall the grass would get on, in my case, Nolensville Road in the median. I've got people calling me complaining, and then I have to tell them, well, that's the state's job. It's their highway to maintain. And then we see trash up and down Nolensville Road, Picker Road right now, and I was told that the state only gets through there about once a month. It just seems if they're going to call us to complain, it might be something worth us maybe looking at. I know Councilmember Young mentioned at that time that Goodlettsville does in fact get paid by the state to maintain some of the right-of-way along the interstates and whatnot, just to keep them looking nice. Again, I don't know how feasible it would be, how quick it could happen, but we just would like NDOT to look at that. So that's the purpose of the little discussion.
I remember shortly after that, Mr. Reed at NDOT had reached out to me and said he was speaking with TDOT, and so I don't know whatever became of that, but there was some motion in that direction, if I recall.
Councilman Young, do you mean subsequent to our discussion in committee here? Is that what you're saying?
Our original discussion on it, which was probably maybe 2 months ago, maybe approximately.
So who's going to pay for the study? And if it is decided that the state will contract NDOT to do it, would that guarantee or grandfather other like projects that have been taken on? Because I know that for a property and a TDOT project that was done on Jefferson Street, we've had to have Tennessee State, Meharry, and Jump actually come up with the funds to maintain that property and that project, and that's been for 10 years now. So I'm just wondering if the cost is going to be on the state, and is it going to grandfather in other projects like this, and who's going to pay for the cost of the study?
The answer is I don't know that right now. I've left it kind of open. I didn't necessarily think that we would have to hire somebody to do a study. I would think that we have people that talk all the time between Metro and Nashville, just part of the regular way of doing business, and didn't know that we had to go outside.
Yeah, that would have been, to me, that should have been a part of the study when they decided to create the Nashville Department of Transportation. They should have been a part of that.
And then again, we're talking about we're going to have more equipment to do that. And I don't know that we could do it all in 1 year. So I've kind of left it open, waiting for NDOT to kind of, all right, here's what we've looked at, here's what we've done, and come back to us when they can get that prepared, and we can fill in some of those blanks at that time. And certainly I would encourage you, if you think you'd like them to take over that part, to reach out to NDOT and say, hey, would you consider throwing this into the discussions?
So if we decide that if we vote to conduct a study, then they will do the study, and then they'll tell us later that the study's going to cost $5 million. Are we already in it? I mean, because we've already said that we voted to conduct the study.
Is there someone from NDOT that can address an estimated cost?
I'm present. Our intent, based on the legislation, would be to simply begin the study. We plan on doing it in-house, to come back with ideas on how we could, if it could be done, what it would cost to be done. So at this point, I don't know of any outside funding we would need at this particular moment. Obviously, as you get into the study, so I think everything, those sort of things that you were bringing up could certainly be part, if we just need to get it to the folks pulling it together. But since we already have crews, the question becomes, how many more crews would it take? And as the councilman said, how much equipment and so forth. But again, focusing on litter and grass. So it'd be an in-house study is what is the way I understand it would happen at this point.
Well, I think we need more information.
Yes.
Councilmember Henderson?
Thank you. I guess my questions are in a similar vein to Councilwoman Hurt. I feel like if discussions are ongoing, I mean, I kind of come from the position that the onus is on the state with its billion-dollar roadway budget to maintain its roads. And if it's, advantageous to us, right, but to support, as Councilman Young said, City of Goodlettsville to be doing that work. Again, respectfully, that y'all are a smaller footprint, right? So, I mean, we're 532 square miles, a lot of intersection of state and otherwise. And so I would hope that, I appreciate you clarifying it's internal kind of study, but I guess I want to understand, Councilman Nash, kind of, what are the deliverables, and I apologize, the legislation itself, does it sort of specify, is it just sort of a fiscal, like this is what it would cost comparison? Or, I mean, but from a long-range standpoint, Council Lady Hurt's standpoint, we have a lot of kind of higgledy-piggledy, these people partner, this one mows through an agreement, like there's a lot of that overall, and it almost seems like you have to have a kind of a level set, like a resetting, this is the expectation. Is it solely what you're asking for is just a feasibility kind of fiscal, because I mean there's gravel, there's bikeways, there's, in addition to litter and mowing that we've discussed here too. So I just want to make sure that the internal conversations with TDOT are kind of fully vetted, and I don't know if that requires a study, but if I think I understand better what you're specifically asking for in the context of that study, that might be helpful.
Councilmember Young.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I think maybe the word study might be throwing some folks off. I think, and someone tell me if I'm interpreting this incorrectly, but this is simply a request from the council to go on record requesting NDOT to just kind of look at some cost-benefit analysis of in problem spots, like I think maybe Nolensville Road is an example where it can be a state route, and then for a couple blocks it's not, and then it becomes a state route, just in these problem areas where it is a bit difficult, where it might just be easier for Metro to say, hey, these few blocks that this is a state route, it probably just makes more sense for us to be mowing and maintaining that little bit so that it matches the rest of that area. I never understood this as an intent for us to be looking at, every mile of state right-of-way in the county, and I think that's part of what NDOT will look at is what is, are there some solutions that, or some situations where it might make sense for us to do something like that, and some situations where it would not. I don't think this is at all intended as to generate some 50-page report or study analyzing every mile of state route. But I mean, maybe I have understood the intent wrong, but I think maybe there's.
I think that's kind of my question, because I don't necessarily think that would be a bad thing. I mean, honestly, like every single road mile, who owns what, who maintains what, do you do the gravel on the bike lanes, do we mow, do we, like, with a level of precision. I guess what I worry, if the study is predicated on, could we partner and we do more, albeit maybe paid for, I just don't know if, I think we do need to comprehensively look at this and come to some agreement, but I don't respectfully think it should just be, oh, this problem area here, that problem area, this has been a problem. We got it all over. It's all up in my district. I think any and every one of us would say it is a problem.
Right.
And so I just want to make sure if we are going to call it a study that we're very specific about what our expectations are. And, I don't mind if it at this juncture remains through recommendation of the council, fairly informal, right? Like, how would this work? Whatever, like just a more kind of conversation. And I guess my question is, with more of that conversation, could we get to a place where we're asking very precisely for, you can, whatever our map is that, Public Works maintains and said, oh, well, this is City of Forest Hills and this is a state route and this is a local road, like that data set a level of precision that says, you're mowing this side, we're mowing that side. You're cleaning the bike lanes, we're doing this. Like, that is very much needed. And I'm a little worried that this will happen in a betwixt and between place where we just do a little bit more than the conversations, but we don't take it to the actual level that we need, respectfully. So I'm just trying to figure out, are we asking for the right things at this point? I feel like this is almost a middle path, and maybe we need to ask for more.
I
honestly.
agree. I think we should definitely ask for more information, so can we defer and ask NDOT to provide us with more information?
How many times do we defer this? We've deferred it once.
Let me check, but just once?
I think the intent was just a little bit more like Zach's. Let's NDOT enjoin some discussion with TDOT and then come back to us and say, here's what we think might be feasible. And then we can get into the more weeds, I think. But I think to start out and us trying to dictate to them exactly what we want and where might be too much to ask at this time. I'd like to give them a chance to go out and have some discussions and then come back and say, well, here's what in our discussions, here's what we think can happen. And then maybe we can get a little more detail at that time. But my intent was to kind of get them joined in discussion of it anyway and see what might be possible.
Chair,
Yes?
thank you. Is there a time frame for this comprehensive look? That
I did not put a time frame on it just because the state's involved. I didn't want to force a
well,
time on it.
not for us to take over, but just to comprehensively look at how feasible it is. Is there a time frame for that study part? Because I don't know if this is in the bill, but will they, once the study or the report, I'll call it a report, comes back, will we then look at it to consider if we want to engage in some kind of partnership?
I would hope so, yeah.
So this is just for the report?
There'd have to be. And again, I trust that they'll be back to us when a lot on the plate right now, certainly before budget. If there's going to be any kind of immediate action, they'd have to come back to us to talk about extra crews and whatnot. But
I think there was a motion to defer, and I would like to second that, because I think there are a lot of unanswered questions, and if we could get a little more information of how this would actually be facilitated, then that
I
might,
have some answers right here.
that might be helpful.
Well, again, based on the request from council, what we were intending was to specifically look at the issues of what's the state cutting, what could Metro do. Again, that was, and litter pickup. Obviously, if the council wants more information, it would obviously take more time. But in terms of intent, our intent is to get this as quickly as we can have the conversation with the state. I think they've already started trying to do it. We already know where things are. So the question becomes, talking with the state, what's feasible from their standpoint, what they're willing to do and what they're not willing to do. Clearly, I don't think they're going to give us a big pile of money. I'll look at Mr. Honeysucker. He's been in those conversations, I think, as well. John, is there something you could add to?
Well, I think one thing that would be helpful with this study, and like you all said, is it's okay to do a study, but if you don't have the right substance to look for in the study, then it's defeating the purpose. And we need more input from the council. We need you all to send in some of the things that you're requesting or want us to look at, so we can make sure that we are looking at the right thing. Because without your input, we could just be focused on certain things that we see. But you all in the district, you all see that actually the need of every day. So we need that input from the council. And that's really will be helpful with this study. Instead of us spending a lot of time on that, we just need the right ingredients from you all to actually look for the right solution.
Well, I can tell you that historically, Public Works would put that responsibility on the community and not take it on themselves. Even though TDOT will grant funds for a specific project, the maintenance of it did not lie within Public Works, but within the community in which the project was done. So I don't know, now that we have a full department, if the department is going to continue with that practice, or are they going to take on the responsibility of maintaining such projects?
And
And
again,
that did include,
That's one we have to,
we just have to, I mean,
Yeah,
I think
we'd have to
Ms. Honeysucker's right. It's just a matter of, if there's more, we're going with the idea of specific grass and litter. If there's more out there that needs to be done, obviously, we would need direction on, well, we want to know this and this and this, and we put it together. And it may, at that point, is it in-house? I don't know. And certainly, that was the intent, was for us to do it in-house. But we'd have to go back and just look and say, can we bring the right expertise to the table to make it happen and fulfill what you need?
to your point, Councilor Hurd, that's one that has not been addressed. I think that
Correct.
particular point that you're asking, that probably would not even be in the study, but with you bringing it to our attention.
Would it,
well, I can tell you, the same thing happened over on Dixon Road when they put the buffalo and that whole median out there. That is a problem. Same thing in Bellevue when they did the beautification in Bellevue in front of the SunTrust Bank. So I can name
Yeah.
several different
I know
locations.
Dickus Road merchants were
Exactly.
mowing the buffalo. Would it make the committee more comfortable if we ask NDOT, if we pass this and they start those discussions, to send out a request to each council person, here's things we're looking at, can you send us some suggestions from your particular districts that might be included as you are in these discussions?
Well, we got a motion on the floor. We're gonna,
You're right. Well, that kind of speaks to the motion to deferral too. I would speak against the motion to defer if that kind of answers the questions on the bill itself. You're right. Any other discussions on the motion to defer? Seeing none, all those in favor of the motion to defer, vote saying aye.
Aye.
1, 2, 3, 4. Against motion to defer?
Nay.
4 deferral, 3 against.
Councilman Nash, if I may, I concur with you. Like, I don't think we necessarily want to be overly prescriptive, but I think I would have a little bit more comfort if we did have a little bit more specificity in what we're asking. And then before NDOT gets too deep in it, they come back to us and say, okay, we're going to sit down with TDOT and we're going to talk about these things. That's going to be part of what we're addressing. And then we just get a little bit of affirmation of, oh, okay, well, this is the shared project stuff. And,
Right.
oh, this is the gravel and the bike lanes. And this is the mowing. And this is it, and just kind of see. So I appreciate, to your point, sometimes you're having informal conversation. You don't want to be overly prescriptive to start. But I just worry that if this is kind of predicated on, would you look if it makes sense for us to mow and clean up litter, that they will confine themselves to that, which is very important. But I think as long as they're having that conversation, there's a few other ancillary things that are really relevant. So,
Well, then I would look for an amendment from somebody on this
Yeah.
committee.
Okay.
If you,
yep. Appreciate you bringing this forward. It's
Yes.
definitely a conversation that needs to happen.
So we would anticipate then, I apologize.
Oh, no, go ahead.
I would anticipate then an amendment that would be, that add the specificity then that would give us direction.
Correct.
All for that. Thank you.
I just caution us not to be brain surgeons treating a paper cut.
I concur
Okay.
with you. I hear what you say, not being overly prescriptive. I concur.
okay, on to Resolution 2021-1158, Tunes Nash, Allen, and Welch. Approves the application of federal COVID relief funds for transportation improvements grant to Greater Nashville Regional Council to the Metro Nashville Department of Transportation and Multimodal Infrastructure for pedestrian safety and multimodal infrastructure improvements. Administration have any thing they want to mention about that?
As the budget financials,
I'm sorry, we had a motion and a second.
Oh, I thought you were asking me to speak, I'm sorry.
And if you had anything to add to the.
I think the grant application was included as a part of as your package, so it's pretty specific on 4 intersections.
And can you list those again? I only got 2 of them written down.
Okay, it would be Dixon Pike at Hart Lane, intersection improvements, Dixon Pike at Lucille Street, pedestrian improvements, Rosa Parks Boulevard at Hume Street, pedestrian improvements, and then Rosa Parks at Taylor Street, pedestrian improvements.
And may I ask how those projects were chosen, and if there's any relation to I know at the beginning of the Berry administration, there was some funding around intersections that kind of never happened, and that got reappropriated. So is this, I think there's a little confusion this past time in the capital spending plan, just from a legibility perspective, respectfully. You know, this is the capital sidewalk budget, this is traffic calming, you know, whether we're gonna programmatically do some of this pedestrian type stuff. So I just wanna understand, I know it's a pass-through grant coming from GNRC. Are we matching and bringing any capital dollars to effectuate these, and how were they chosen?
There's not a local match required, so I can answer that. Rosa Parks between Jefferson Street and Garfield Street, between 2018 and 21, there were 10 pedestrian crashes. 2 of those crashes were fatal and 3 were serious. Then if you look over at Dixie Road and Hart, there were 22 pedestrian crashes between 2018 and 2021. 4 of them were serious crashes and 5 included fatalities. So they were chosen specifically for safety issues that were related to accidents and death, unfortunately.
You said Jefferson Street and Garfield, you meant Rosa Parks?
I meant Rosa Parks, I'm sorry.
So I guess my question.
Well, but it's between Jefferson, Rosa Parks between Jefferson Street and Garfield. Is where those accidents were.
So I guess my question then, Mr. Fields, comes, again, those intersections that were studied for similar reasons, high crash volume, pedestrian fatality, very administrative, what happened to those, first off? Because those were prioritized and in the queue to be done. Are those still sitting in some discrete pile somewhere, or they have been brought into this? And then secondly, are we then, in response to this funding opportunity, but then also separately, is NDOT going to programmatically, objectively score intersections, pedestrian crossings? That's something that this body has been asking for that to be its own kind of bucket, whether through grant funding or otherwise. So is this just responsive to this grant? Is this a start of a trend of how we're going to manage these? I want to understand that in the context.
I cannot answer that. I was not a part of those particular conversations. I could be wrong if I told you. We certainly could get answers back to you, but I don't want to mislead you tonight.
That'd be great if you could get those answers back to the committee.
Chair.
Yes,
And I guess I'm trying to figure out how COVID relief funds are related to pedestrian safety and multimodal intersection improvements. I'm just.
I think there's some dollars, if I may, Chair. I think there's some dollars at the federal level that were very specific to
Some
transportation.
infrastructure, I do realize that. The infrastructure, I'm just wondering, what specific COVID relief funds, do we know?
Batch of them.
I know that it came out of the, I know where it came out of the federal grant, which is, it's CRRSS. SAA 21 through 24. So it's, as Council Lady Henderson said, it's specific funds that were set aside for transportation improvements through the COVID relief funds.
Okay.
So it was.
And this is seeking a grant from GNRC. This isn't coming out of Metro.
Right, I realize that as well. I realize that. But just one for informational purposes.
And again, this is the application process. So it is time sensitive. If we can move it forward, then clearly, we are responsive, or we want to be responsive to council, and we would be back with whatever questions that you might have. And Councilor Henderson, I'd like to speak with you separately just to make sure I get down what you had said.
Any further discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor, vote saying aye.
Aye.
Those against?
It's a yes.
She said yes.
Okay. So, 8 in favor, right? We got 8 in favor, 0 against. Bill 2021-867, O'Connell Church, Nashville's Metro Code laws regarding night parking restrictions. Councilmember O'Connell, you want to Move the bill.
Yeah, this one just got deferred in codes, and I think there was actually some confusion as to why it was referred to codes in the first place, since this is really a public right-of-way bill. I guess I would move, so that there, I think not looking at the agenda, I wasn't clear on that, but I guess it maybe will have gotten re-referred to this committee. So I think just a one-meeting deferral, and we can pick it up next meeting.
So moved.
The motion to defer, any discussion on the motion to defer?
I guess as we defer, the one thing I would ask is some good questions, despite it, codes having really no enforcement jurisdiction over this, did come up in that committee. I'm going to work with colleagues to make sure that we get any questions in beforehand. So if you look at this and have questions about enforcement or timing or anything like this, let me know. This really has come up out of a neighborhood context, but again, I think sort of set against a backdrop of taking a closer look at parking overnight after December 25th. So, I do want to make sure if we alter the restrictions here that we get this right. We've already tweaked something. This one mostly focuses on vehicle size, but if anybody has questions, just let me know.
Anybody else?
Can I just ask one
Sure.
question to be added to the list to be dealt with during the deferral? So I think that ties it to the deferral. Would this include school buses, and will that make it more difficult for us to recruit school bus drivers if we can't allow them to park them at their homes overnight? And I don't even know if they do that in Nashville, but I want to make sure we don't throw any more
No,
obstacles.
that's a good question. We could potentially make, that's the kind of thing where if we need to make any exemptions on a vehicle, particularly in use in a public service context, then I think that's appropriate. This was primarily looking at kind of storage vehicles or moving trucks, that kind of thing, like
Yeah.
box trucks. But we can look at the specificity and see if we need to do
Okay,
that.
I would just ask for
Could
that.
I park a party bus at my home?
No.
And no income.
All right,
We have.
on the motion to defer one meeting, all those in favor, vote by saying aye.
RVs.
How many against? 8-4-0 against. Bill number 2021-874, O'Connell, Toombs, Murphy, and Nash authorizes the conditional abandonment of a portion of Alley 371, approving the acquisition and interest in certain real property improvements thereupon, compromising a new alley and granting of an easement above the new alley in connection with the development of a project in Nashville. And I think we had to defer that one meeting because it hadn't gone to the planning commission.
The Traffic and Parking
Traffic and
Commission.
Parking Commission, yeah. Okay. Motion for one meeting deferral?
So moved.
Motion and a second. Any discussion? Seeing no discussion, all those in favor of the one meeting deferral, vote saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, the like sign. 8-4-0 against to defer one meeting. And then Bill number 2021-877, Toombs, Nash and Welch approves a contract between the Metropolitan Water and Sewage Services and Light Wave Renewables LLC for the design, construction, operation, management, and administration services related to photovoltaic solar facilities located at Central Wastewater Treatment Plant, Whites Creek Wastewater Treatment Plant, and Omohundro Water Treatment Plant. I'll move the bill. Second. Mr. Schneider, you want to kind of brief us again? I know we approved, I think, the overall project. Is this kind of the second phase?
Mr. Chair, this is simply a name change on the contract. This would take place of Bill 2021-613, and the contractor's name changed in that process, so we had to bring the bill back before council for the name change.
And did I remember right, this will ultimately save Metro Water a lot of money in electric bills over time.
Yes, sir. John Barnett to my left is the project manager. And John, can you share with the subcommittee on the savings piece of it? With the understanding that we did some very conservative increases on what NES would normally charge, and we did a historical study on what that would be. So, but those projections are very, very good. John?
So what we're doing here with the photovoltaic is we are leasing the equipment. So we're paying flat rate across the year. And when that works out to be, if you looked at the kilowatt hours that are generated, what we're using behind the meter, ends up being almost a net savings in the very beginning. So when you have that flat across the 30 years, and there's no escalation on that versus your NES bill that will escalate about 2% per year. Over that time span, you start to have increased savings year after year after year. It could be anywhere from $1 million to $10 million over the life of the contract.
And there's zero water services money on the front end, so there's no capital expense there, so.
Any discussion?
And I didn't write it down. Can you say again what the total kilowatt capacity is?
4 megawatts.
4 megawatts, gotcha, okay.
Anybody else? Seeing none, then all those in favor of saying aye?
Aye.
And those against? 074, 0 against. Bill number 2021-879, Toombs, Murphy, and Nash approves an agreement between the Metro Department of Water Services and Piedmont Natural Gas Company for shared use of Metro Water Services Access Drive. I do have a letter from Council Member Henderson requesting a one-meeting deferral. We have a motion and a second discussion.
Chair Nash, is somebody here representing Nashville Gas? Thank you. I just had some questions about this. Is this a regulator station? I know that Metro Water maybe has an existing asset, and so you're just wanting to be able to use that driveway, but I wanted to understand relative to what I can see on Google Maps, right, and the chain link fence and the trees and the property, where will this sit in relation to the driveway? Like, I could not ascertain kind of where, I mean, I could see the site, but I didn't understand how big is this and, you know, what does it entail?
Yep, so the site is north of the north, I guess, west of the station. I don't have exact dimensions off the top of my head of the station, but we would essentially be using the first half of the Metro access driveway, and then we would construct a separate driveway that would veer off to our station directly.
Okay, and again, but what size is the station? That's what I can't ascertain, because the legislation itself, and this is why, Chair, I'm just requesting a deferral, if you don't mind. I just want to understand the footprint and what the regular station, you know, what it's going to look like from the road, et cetera. So,
I can speak a little bit to that.
Okay.
So I don't think it's going to be very visible from the road at all when it's completed. Obviously, right now, it looks like a bomb went off. There's just trucks and construction everywhere.
Yep.
So most of what is visible today is temporary workspace. I think I don't remember the exact dimensions of the area. It will be fenced, and we have talked with the church about providing some additional landscaping at the end of the construction period.
Okay.
So they have.
Yeah, I'd like to understand that. I just want to understand what your commitments are as to landscaping, what it will look like from the street, what the size is. So if you can just get that to me by next time, we'll defer it one meeting, and happy to proceed after that.
We can certainly do that. Yes.
Should that be attached to the legislation?
Yeah, I mean, I would like to see, again, so best I could understand from the attachments, it was just you are agreeing with Public Works to give access, but I did not see an attachment that showed specifically the footprint, what landscaping would be planted afterwards. Like, I think if we're going to approve this, I'd like to understand that, and I know my
So
constituents.
we did provide an exhibit, so
Okay.
I'm sure we can get that to you.
Okay, I appreciate that. I didn't find that.
Yeah, I'm not sure why it's not attached.
Okay.
I think it should be. So to check on that for sure.
Okay.
But for clarity, the final landscaping hasn't been totally agreed to. We were waiting till everything was done.
Yeah, so the church had some questions about what types they might want, and they're more interested in blocking the view between the church and the station as opposed to the road view.
Right.
It's pretty far back from the road,
Okay,
so
and
it's
I
really.
appreciate that, and that's why scale is important, so I have constituents who reside on that street and are gonna look that way, I just want to be able to ascertain, how different it's going to be from what it is today. And if you're going to do landscaping for the church anyway, can we just kind of think about that collectively?
Yes,
So-
and so I think the biggest change is just going to be that the driveway itself is going to be a little wider, and
Yeah.
that was at Metro Water's request,
Okay,
so
yeah.
that the two cars could pass.
Understood.
Yeah, so that's the biggest thing as far as what's visible from the road. I don't know if we have any, we could send a couple of pictures probably of an example station. It wouldn't be the exact one, but.
That would be helpful. Then if constituents ask, I can just say, this is what it'll look like. So, okay, thank you.
Anybody else? Zach?
I guess I'm not sure the point of the deferral. I mean, this is just second reading of the bill, and, I mean, I think this is maybe information that could have been requested prior. I think there was an attachment from what I remember, so I guess,
It doesn't show the regulator station, Councilman Young. It just
Okay.
shows the existing.
I just don't know what
Condition and,
we're achieving by deferring, and I hate to see this body continue to be so inefficient, so I'm just, I don't know.
Respectfully, Councilman Young,
Yes.
I appreciate the folks from Piedmont Gas being here today, but they did not get in touch with me prior to this legislation. And so, I'm juggling a lot of things. It comes up today. They were
Sure.
here. I've asked the questions. I'd like to get a little more information. I don't think it's any skin off their nose to defer at one meeting.
No, and no one has asked me. I just,
Well, it does,
Once I requested the deferral, Mr. Davidson reached out to me, and you all are here, and I appreciate that. But in the scheme of things, this is,
it does raise a question, could it move forward tonight? And then if they don't provide you the information needed, vote against it on the 3rd?
It's already been deferred in planning, so it'll be an automatic
Right.
deferral tonight.
Never mind. Any more discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor of the one meeting deferral, vote by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, like sign. Ayes have it, 8-4-0 again. And one more. Bill number 2021-884, Murphy and Nash, abandons existing sanitary sewer main, sanitary sewer manhole and easements, and to accept new sanitary sewer main, sanitary sewer manholes and easements for property located at 4005 Utah Avenue, and I have a letter requesting a one meeting deferral from C.M. Murphy. Motion second. Do we know the reason for the deferral?
Trying to think. It was deferred in planning yesterday too.
Okay.
I think she might be waiting on more information.
Well, I don't know. We haven't been, hasn't been requested, so we're not sure what the
Okay.
deferral is.
Okay.
Well, I'm sure we'll find out.
Any problems with a deferral as far as what you need to do here?
I don't think so.
Okay.
Does that automatically re-refer it to us?
Yes.
Any further discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor of the one meeting deferral, say aye.
Aye.
And opposed, like sign. And that makes it 4-7, 4 deferrals, 0. Thank you, everybody, and again, it's been a pleasure, a learning experience for me, and I'm grateful.